Friends, subscribe to our blog on Sponsor or Boost, thereby you will significantly help us in our work. All videos there are released in early access, before publication on YouTube. There are also videos that will never appear on this channel, due to the fact that they will simply be deleted by this video hosting. With this subscription, you will support our work and we will be able to continue making videos. The links are in the description. Today there will be a short course of imperial construction or why the Americans did not shoot. As history teaches us, it is not enough to win something, you need to be able to keep it. For example, the empire of Alexander the Great did not survive him and collapsed almost immediately after his death. Black swans can be like that. To keep it, you need architecture in every sense of the word. It is necessary to increase the connectivity of territories, it is necessary to build infrastructure and communications, it is necessary to increase manageability, reduce the time of passing the management signal and build feedback systems. It is necessary to incorporate local elites, turn them into compradors, integrate them into the general system of oppression and create local loyal troops from the natives. The British, by the way, were very good at it. Here we have Gurkhas. Here we have Sikhs. Here we have some other Maori who have been taught that it is an honor and prestige to serve a distant island king. The Americans only succeeded with residents from the country 404. Well, maybe even with the Kosovars, but there are few of them, and the Georgians tried to be the dogs of the empire. They did not like it, it hurt a lot. In all other cases, the NATO coalitions that were created against certain countries, they were always spared each, that is, they often did not even bother with the need for certain units in the theater of operations. The main thing is that more countries fit in, demonstrating puppy loyalty. The heterogeneity of such groups only affected their overall combat capability. Take an interest in the problems of the army in Austria-Hungary, where every officer was forced to know commands in 6 languages, and also repeat them before the formation in each of these languages. Multiply this by different weapons standards, because these are only NATO standards on paper, and now it turns out that there are 14 types of 155mm shells produced in NATO countries alone, and they are not interchangeable. Empire is the hierarchical management of heterarchies, that is, the ability to integrate different things into a common system. Gilbride once introduced the concept of a mature corporation. Now, by analogy, it is time to introduce the concept of a mature empire. For example, Russia is a mature empire. Buryats make good tankmen, Chukchi make snipers, Chechens make assault squads and military police. Each is embedded where it will be most useful. But the United States turned out to be an empire frankly immature. And at the beginning of the 90s, there was not only dizziness from success, there the cuckoo was completely blown away. On the subject, everything is allowed to us now. Because the British built and gnawed out their empire for several centuries, and the hegemony fell on the Americans like a snowball. Largely due to the fact that others weakened each other while they were holed up behind a puddle. But this is not an imperial principle. You can't be a world reader. According to the principle, we were sitting in the bushes while others were fighting. However, about this separately. The imperial principle of governance is, for example, how the British have their own subordinate imperial dynasty in China and a fighter against British oppression, Sun Yat-sen, hiding from the bloody regime in London. Well, if one overthrows the other, then nothing changes for the metropolis. In the early 90s, the United States had every chance to integrate Russia into its system. Russia asked to join NATO in the 91st year, and even in the 2002 year, and there was also a Kozyrev who asked the United States to tell us what our national interests are. Well, a bunch of other things, including Chicago boys and CIA agents with free access to all offices. You know all this yourself. To make Russia a regional leader within the planetary system, so that it could then be used as a local policeman, was real. And many Russian elites were not against such embedding. But the greed of the Frauer ruined. It's necessary for the locals to leave a share of the resource robbery. A toad of universal scale. It should be added that the main geostrategs of the Americans at that time were Poles. This is the end of the phrase. But I'm evil, so I'll develop a thought. Poles are masters of geopolitics. Who else has sought the partition of their country 5 times? Naturally, the birth injuries of the Polish swamp gentry also overlapped, which cannot forgive the Russians how they ate each other in the Moscow Kremlin. And lobbying, and let's make Poland a regional policeman. We see the result in real time. Poland did not enter the war, but it can no longer. In general, it was the most dangerous thing for Russia to integrate into the Western system. Be afraid of the Donians bringing gifts. But American diplomacy has degraded so much that they no longer know how to bring gifts. Only the whip, fortunately. If you want to know who exactly is to blame that the United States failed to integrate Russia into its imperialist world system, I know this person. His name is Joseph Robinette Biden. For when in 1997 he was asked if NATO's expansion to the east would lead to an alliance between China and Russia, the so-called Kissinger nightmare, he replied, "I beg you, this is ridiculous." Well, who's laughing now? In general, the current president has always been a bit silly. He's still talking nonsense non-stop. First, stating that the United States is the greatest empire of all time. The Egyptians, the Romans, the Chinese and the British are like, well, yes, let's get out of here. Or recently, the US president was going to build a new world order. With the wording, because the old one can no longer cope, so the old one is just built by you. And it was he who 26 years ago, well, not in one snout, of course, buried the long American century. Imagine an alternative scenario for a moment. The United States abides by the agreements reached. It is no longer science fiction, I agree. In 2002, Russia was admitted to NATO. Then the Russian contingent participated in campaigns in Afghanistan, a familiar theater of military operations, familiar opponents and Iraqis. Without Russian support, the Venezuelan government is overthrown, Iran is being pressed much harder, and by 2012, the sanctions war against China is actively beginning, with its cutting off from resource flows. Attention to the question, was Pax Americano stronger in this situation? My answer is of course, but Americans who have gone choose other options. They include all sorts of mighty bolts in NATO, which is why, according to the mass of military experts, NATO has only weakened, having received bread and lost control. They are betting on the further partition of Russia. They start bombing our Serbian brothers. And for 25 years I have not heard a clear rational answer to Chuck Vahua. The Americans who have gone decide that their regional policeman will be the country 404. Well, yes. A country with a pre-war population of 30 million and without industry will restrain a 150 million strong Russia with a developed military-industrial complex. And what could have gone wrong here, I ask you? The plan is reliable, logical and calculated, especially in a green bag. Just fly away. Here we need a video with Adolf, who draws circles with his finger on a map around Berlin with the words Alice in Orning. We still have 23 million Taiwan to contain 1.5 billion China. Mein Führer, du Dolb ***** Ob. And after that, will you tell me that there are some mighty and insidious strategists there, making mighty and insidious plans? In their brain centers there are individuals like Masha Hestern, Masha Slonim or similar deeply ill characters who do not have a normal education, a normal profession, work experience. Their whole worthless life is sucking grants for stories Russia is weak, the USA is strong. Seriously, please consider the opportunity to award these machines with some kind of order, for example, for a useful Dolb ***** B for Russia. But that's not all. The current president in the state decided to surpass Adolf for puddles. The one who did not win in one war climbed into another, and this one is climbing into a third one before our eyes. And the same, approximately promising, in terms of a possible victory, as the previous two. 7 million Jews against 400 million Arabs. Here we have a bunch of people from the 404 country holding Russia, there is a small island holding back China, and we will put Israel against the Arab world. What? Here's what could go wrong. Alice in Orning we remember. If British diplomacy has been practicing the principle for centuries, the two strongest countries on the continent should be at enmity with each other. France and Spain, France and Germany, Russia and Germany at different times in different ways, then these are fucked up here. In general, the balance of various forces and the management of this balance is the basis of imperial governance. If you read the notes about the gay war of Comrade Guy Julius, then this is the wildest boring reading. No those lush and descriptions of battles. More like an accounting report. These were bribed for so much, these were built with those like this. There were actually a lot of Roman troops there. But due to diplomacy, most of the Gauls killed or weakened each other, and the Romans simply finished off the survivors. Lure the strong to your side, the weak will come running themselves. While the United States was happily looking at the crowd of customers near its doors, and each of them was impatiently shouting give, Russia was building relations with strong regional leaders China, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Iran and so on. Notice no dwarf neoplasms, no mighty Albanians and terrifying Litvas, it is so numerous that it does not even bend properly. No, it sounds menacing in words, a coalition of 50 countries, 7-nation army, but you open the list of these countries, Albania, Georgia, Ireland separately from Britain, purely to make the figure bigger, Northern Macedonia and even some Tonga, I didn't find it on the map without a strong magnifying glass, and terrible Luxembourg. Only the mighty Ulm is scarier, the meme is not for everyone, but he did not live for our times. What does this tell us? Starting with the inability to choose allies and ending with the wildest inefficient use of resources. That's why, tell me, such a huge US embassy in Armenia, so that what? Tear Armenia away from Russia? Let's say what happens next. It has no border with Russia, it cannot send saboteurs, it has no strategic significance, turn Armenians into a stronghold of Russophobia. Give two for the price of one. I have a simple and logical explanation. Every self-respecting era living in the USA should attach his Garrick to such a respected institution, and since the right Armenians sing songs, show priests, sorry. The most famous Armenian woman in the world today is known only for her booty, and earn in other respectable ways. Then to the US Embassy they send the shame of the family and who you were born into, out of sight, so you swelled up. And all this with taxpayers' money.